and welcome back to another episode of the Mining and Markets podcast hosted by Senergy Capital. Joining us today is the CEO of GSP Resource Corp, which trades on the venture exchange under symbol GSPR, Mr. Simon Dyakowski. Simon, how are you?
Hey, good day, Alwin. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show today.
The last time we spoke, I believe it was about your other company, Aztec, which is almost the big brother in this situation, and GSP is the infant, which is making some serious strides. In my view, there's a ton of potential upside here. One of my clients I was recently speaking with told me just yesterday, he said, Aleem, finding the right exploration company has to have 3 Ps, which is project, people, and place, which I think GSP represents quite well. The location is excellent. It's just neighboring the largest copper mine in Canada, known as the Highland Valley Copper Mine. The team is experienced and the project itself is extremely attractive, not to mention the tiny market cap and extremely tight share structure, which of course is an added bonus. Simon, let's talk about the plans here for the remainder of 2023, going into the new year. I know the company recently announced some new drill targets, which look exciting. What's the objective here for drilling and the plan moving forward?
Yeah, thanks. We do have, a great project, great people, and we acquired this Alwin Mine project back in 2020. And we've been working up the case to go and drill it now for the past year. We did do some limited drilling back in 2020 and 2021, had some good results, but then realized that we really needed to go ahead and consolidate some of the historic information associated with this project. So that's really been the focus of the last 12 months from late last summer until today, has been a data review, modeling, and compilation. And what we found is over 60,000 meters of historic drill data, which we've now modeled. We've now verified a number of the old assay results, and it's really given us a new look at this historic asset, which was only partially mined back in the early 1980s and early 1970s before being prematurely shut down due to a very short-lived blip down in the copper price during the recession in the early 80s. So it's had no mining since then, really not a lot of meaningful work. And with copper being such a scarce resource, we thought this is really a good opportunity to go and have a second look. The project is located next to the largest copper mine in Canada, known as the Highland Valley Mine, which is really important to point out, not just because, that mine is operated by a giant multinational company, Teck Resources, but that we're basically in a brownfields area of completely disturbed land. And with the ESG landscape that we see in the world these days, it's really a big advantage to be somewhere that's not pristine, has had industrial activity on it before, so that we're not proposing to wreck any new environment. It's just really to build upon something that's already been disturbed. So, we're really lucky in the location of the project. Touching a little bit on the team, we have an excellent technical team that we hired about a year ago that started doing this data review and compilation. That's led by Chris Raffle, a company called Apex Geoscience that has had, a number of very well-known clients in the British Columbia mining exploration sector. We've recently added a new director, Rodney Stevens. He is a former award-winning analyst from Salmon Partners. He was one of the top stock pickers in the bull market of 2006-07, where he won a Star Mine Award. He was the silver analyst at Salmon Partners back then. And we have added a couple of geological advisors to the team, most notably David Heil. Over 40 years experience in the industry. He's discovered multiple copper projects in the Americas. And as well on our advisory team is Greg Dawson, who is currently VPX of Sitka Gold, which has been doing really well recently. So, the team's there, the project's there, and we've been patient in getting the right game plan together for drilling, which is our intention for the fourth quarter of 2023 to go in and drill approximately 12 to 1500 meters at the Alwin Mine and fill in some knowledge gaps and hopefully expand on this project as well.
Okay, so you guys did some initial drilling back in 2020. So this plan moving forward is to follow up on that drill campaign. Is that correct?
It's really to follow up on the new model. It's been reinterpreted. We've identified some areas where we think we can find down dip and down plunge extensions of the mineralization that has not yet been drilled, and also to continue to verify the historic data set of 60,000 meters of drilling. So it's a little bit of both. It's some confirmation and some expansion drilling, which I think is a nice mix for where we're at in this point of the development of this project.
I know it's a little bit hard to speculate, but what's kind of the timeline for drilling this year?
So the timeline is to get going in the fourth quarter. October, November is a great time to be drilling up in the Highland Valley. It's past the summer fire season, and it's before the really cold, snowy season in the winter. So it'll be this fourth quarter.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit more about the location. Is the end goal with GSP to be a potential buyout from Tech, given that it's right next door, or what do you see here with that?
The end goal is to make the shareholders money. We'd love to sell the project eventually, but we're only at about a $4.5, $5 million market cap right now, which is it's peanuts for an established copper project in a mining friendly jurisdiction like British Columbia. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We don't want to talk about selling anything too early. We really want to prove out and discover more in the interim and then ultimately monetize the asset for our shareholders. Who or in what format that transaction might take place is, it's still uncertain, of course. It obviously doesn't hurt to have a gigantic operator next door that's ramping up production. But, there's many, many options, especially in BC if you have a good high grade copper project.
And is it the case that, Tech might be expanding their footprint and, looking at other projects nearby? Has that happened historically, or is this kind of something that you're kind of anticipating?
Well, no, we've seen in their filings that they're expanding their Valley pit, which is directly adjacent to us. They're pushing it out in our direction. So that that's known. How far they want to push that out going forward in the future, we don't know. But it's positive that it's coming into our direction. And we don't really know if our Alwin mine project is just an extension of that mine, or if it's something deeper and bigger beneath the mine that we already know about. So it's still early days in exploring this thing, but again, just being so close to an expanding mine, obviously expanding in our direction, certainly adds an element of excitement to the story.
Right. And do you guys, for the upcoming drill program, do you guys have the cash to do it? Are you guys going to do a raise soon? What's that looking like?
Yeah, we recently did a raise of just under 400 grand, so it's given us sufficient working capital for the next couple quarters here, and we'll look if there's an attractive option to raise a little bit more money. We might, but nothing that will hurt the share structure too much at this point. That's our our goal plan, our game plan, and our goal is to preserve the tight nature of the share structure. I mean, the stock's been moving quite well the last few days here, and really, I think that's due to the fact that we've been patient. We haven't issued too many cheap shares in the past. We've waited to get the right model, to have the right timing to go ahead and do this drill program. So, we're certainly not anticipating, any sort of hugely dilutive financing to, in the next near future.
Right. Now that we're on the topic, let's talk a little bit about the share structure. I know that it's extremely tight and well put together. Can you touch upon this a little bit?
Yeah, so the company was taken public at 20 cents a couple of years ago, which is right around where we're trading right now. So we're at the IPO price. There's only been a couple of really small financings below this price. One 3 years ago at 15 cents, and then obviously the one a few months ago at 12 cents, but that's still locked up for a couple of months, and it was modest, mostly taken by investors that are very close with the company. So, we certainly don't anticipate too much selling coming out of that camp. And 26 million shares out is minimal for a property of this stage. And to add to that, we have over 30% of our shares are currently locked up by insiders. So, really strong insider ownership on this company, which we've been very deliberate in preserving over the past couple of years.
Right. Let's switch a little bit. I want to talk more about the macro story with copper. It seems that the supply and the demand is expected to grow further. Why is there a price disconnect? Because, I always keep seeing on the news and I keep reading about, there's just simply not enough supply of copper. And recently it's become a U.S. critical mineral. This took quite a long time. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a disconnect between the big supply gap that's looming in the recent trading in the copper price. I mean, I would point out that if you look over a 5 or 10 year period, copper is trading at a very healthy level. And although it's had a bit of a correction over the past 12 to 18 months, most likely due to the slowdown in China, the Chinese government is now reportedly adding stimulus to their economy, and that's typically a big driver of the copper story, is having good growth over in Asia. So that seems to be turning around, and then of course there's a lack of new mines being built, which as the metal refiners work through their stockpiles, they are going to have to try to find new sources from new mines that aren't being built, and simply through the laws of economics, the basic, laws of supply and demand, there's a very, very positive outlook for copper. The battery metals in general, copper being a very important part of, further electrical grid build out. So, while it's been tough over the past 2 years, I think it's a temporary blip. And, we seem to be back on track. At least recently, the price of copper has recovered quite nicely over the past few months. And, at this point, that's a very positive signal for us. Nobody can tell the future, of course, but, the trend can be your friend, and the trend is definitely, our friend in recent weeks.
Given that there needs to be more supply, and I think there's, a big emphasis on North American juniors, becoming producers, do you see any government funding on the horizon for GSP resource?
Well, that's not something we've explored yet, and the reason for that is, you typically look for that in terms of development. So, we still think there's, enormous exploration upside on this project. So we want to, we really want to focus on exploration discovery before thinking about any development plans. But one thing that the government has done recently is added copper to the list of critical mineral elements that obtain favorable tax status in exploration expenditure. So that's definitely positive for companies located in British Columbia and Canada in general, is that there is good support from that perspective, and then hopefully there's more as these projects become more advanced.
And, I kind of asked this earlier, but why do you think it's recently become a critical mineral? Because I think before, back in the day, it was mostly industrial copper was used. There are people now realizing the need for copper with electrification and clean energy. How come it takes so long?
I think copper's always been, obviously, copper wiring is a key element of transmitting electricity, and there's been a push recently to increase the electrical grid. So the reason that it's been classified as critical is that there's a critical need to find more copper to support the build out of the grid, whereas before there was a better clarity, I think, on new mine supply coming on. So classifying it as critical just kind of highlights that more needs to be found fast and put into production versus the historic cycle of these assets.
Right. Great. Simon, thanks so much. If there's any other catalysts coming up, now's the time.
Absolutely. So the catalysts coming up for us are the startup of drilling, further plans on the drilling. We will endeavor to keep our shareholders and prospective shareholders, as up to date as we can, as it relates to, drilling, mobilizing the startup, the completion of certain holes, the results thereafter, and then we continue to grow and continue to discover. So plenty of catalysts. The news flow cycle hasn't even really kicked off yet. We had news a couple weeks ago highlighting our plans. Obviously, some investors became quite excited about that. And I think as we continue to execute on these plans, we should have more opportunities to highlight the compelling proposition of this project and company to the market.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to the news flow, and I wish you guys the best of luck. Thanks again for your time today, Simon.
Well, and likewise, thank you very much.